Hello and welcome to Dice Masters United. I'm Spug.
I'm Ben.
I'm James.
And I'm Peter.
Coming up in this episode,
we're reflecting on the Roll for the North 2 online tournament and talking about why you should play with bad cards more often.
And we'll be revealing the winner of the Boltiest Bolt in Dice Masters. Which card came out on top?
Yep, so the first question we need to address is, you might have heard his voice at the beginning there, but Peter is sadly not with us this evening. He is feeling poorly and we haven't been able to squeeze in another time where we can reschedule so he can be with us. So Peter, get well soon. You are very much missed this evening. We're just going to be flying with this trio that we currently have of me, James and Ben, but we hope your tooth is ceasing to hurt very swiftly and you are back on your feet very soon. The Roll for the North 2 online tournament happened slightly too... Was it late or early, James, for us to talk about it last time? It was too late. It was too late. We recorded too early.
We recorded too early because we...
Oh, yeah, because you're planning trips to the UK, James, which then didn't even happen.
Oh, dear. It's all a mess. Yeah, I was supposed to go to the UK and my wife got COVID the day before we left. So that was... she's all right. She's fine. That's
You also heard that I was threatening to come up and find you and beat you in a game of Dice Masters.
Yeah, that did factor into it, I have to say.
Yeah, that's why you were sending her to on all the busy tube trains around your way.
Yeah.
Sending her to teach in primary schools with lots of snotty kids. Yeah, exactly. But I spent the week, in fact 2 weeks, bird watching. Surprise, surprise.
Of course. Well, I'm very pleased to hear that, and I'm glad that Mrs. James is now indeed fine, which is the most important thing. But anyway, what happened in the meantime was Roll for the North 2, and Ben, again, you are our intrepid reporter. I know that Peter did take part in this tournament as well, so we're hoping to hear from him, but obviously he's not with us. So, Ben, it kind of falls to you to talk a little bit about what happened. So can you fill us in on some of the details? Firstly, what was the format and how did it kind of work?
Well, don't tell me to bring up the format. It was some convoluted thing where you had to have two types of affiliation on your team. So 4 cards of one affiliation, 4 cards of another.
Yeah. And
there are some restrictions that I won't go into that annoyed me. And then also a tier list based on the strength of those affiliations.
Yeah.
So depending on your tier was how good your potential prize entry or prize ticketing got.
That's right.
So the worse your team, the higher the number of tickets you got if you won a round with that terrible team.
That's right. Yeah. So they introduced a kind of multiplier, didn't they? In that if you played with a tier 2 team, you'd get kind of 2 times the raffle entry points for each win, and it was 3 times if you'd played a tier 3 team. And I gather that's exactly what you decided to do. You went tier 3, bottom feeders, the worst you could possibly pick. What did you?
Partially, that's because I was either going to be tier 1 or tier 3 because I couldn't be bothered to sift through all the tier 2 stuff. Quite frankly, that's a lot of stuff to wade through when you don't have time. And then my favourites were all tier 1, Professor X and Mimic. I couldn't play because tier 1 is too... I couldn't do that to myself, really. So I went with tier 3, pretty simple and awful. I mean, truly pretty terrible. I made a good fist to it, I suppose. I think there were only 2 tier 3 pure teams, and I believe the other person who played a tier 3 team didn't end up playing. They'd submitted a team but then couldn't play in the final. I think I was the only strictly tier 3 team on the day.
How many people took part, roughly? Can you remember?
I think there was 25 signed up, and then 23 actually made it through to the end, from what I understand.
It's a decent number.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Good turnout. And there were some really, very, very strong teams. Not that I saw any of them because I was sort of mid-table all day. That's doing a disservice to some of the players I played. But, yeah, no, there's generally a feeling that I think Infinity Gauntlet was the overall strongest thing available.
Yeah. And we'd kind of predicted that a bit, hadn't we? I think previously, because that was tier 2, wasn't it? I think Infinity Gauntlet was tier 2, wasn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. Infinity Watch.
Sorry,
Infinity Watch.
Infinity Watch.
Excuse me.
Tier 2, but Infinity Gauntlet as a set.
James.
But yeah, no, Infinity Watch in particular was particularly prevalent because of. Yeah, so Infinity Watch was prevalent, and also the Black Order, I think, had a couple of appearances. But yeah, I mean, part of the reason is because they were both tier 2. And Infinity Watch has a bunch of really good control pieces that you could then combine with a set that maybe had a good win condition. So you could just... And actually, that's what the winner... So Matthew Brewer ended up winning. And he played Pip and Drax as control pieces, and then the Rare Black Widow, and then had a bunch of weenie Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And sort of just smash face with those, and then controlled... Stopped your opponent from doing anything, and then hit you with dum-dums, basically. I think.
Oh yeah, the Dum Dum Dugan that gets big when you've got sidekicks.
Yeah, with sidekicks. And I think all the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in general give sidekicks a little boost.
Right.
Is it Phil Coulson? But maybe he's not an agent.
Yeah, Phil Coulson. Yeah, he is exactly.
Should be.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. So that so a tier 2 team was. A kind of pure tier 2 team was triumphant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I saw any tier 1 teams particularly.
Oh, really?
Not that were... I saw one tier 1 team that I played, which was an Avengers, but Defenders as well, so that was a bit of a... I think he was restricted in the card pool he had to choose from. So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there were any other tier 1 teams.
No. And that's good. And it was what we haven't mentioned. It was run by the good people at DM North, who were obviously running it. They're kind of they did it this time last year, didn't they? As what became the kind of unofficial sort of online Canadian nationals, didn't they?
Exactly,
in place of the actual things that would have been taking place last year, but obviously for COVID-related reasons couldn't happen, and they decided to do it again this year and extend the invitation for anybody who had a webcam to join them. So it's a good number of people. So how did your day go?
Should I go through my terribleness?
Go on, please do.
So I played Defenders and Green Arrow. I think we kind of discussed those as the best of the worst.
The best of the worst.
Yeah. My main,
which weren't saying anything.
No, not really. I had some ideas. So my sort of main idea, I suppose, ended up being I'll get Doctor Strange out, who's a 7-cost shield character.
Just
he doubles up on actions. So you can use Betrayal, which I just kind of fell back on, and just spam Betrayal, basically. But Luke Cage actually turned out to be a pretty good ramp engine once he got up. He's a 5-cost fist character.
What's his ability?
When you field defender character, while Luke Cage is active, other defender characters cost 1 less to purchase. Whenever you field another defender character, draw a die from your bag and add it to your prep area.
Yeah.
So I had that. Yeah, I had that with the Hellcat, 3-cost Hellcat, which actually increased the price of basic actions by 1 to stop my opponent's buying Betrayal, basically.
Oh yeah.
And then so had Hellcat out, they would be trying to knock it out because they'd want to try and buy, actions for less. In a limited format like this, actions tend to play a big role. So she was kind of annoying, and she has good fielding costs, 1 across the board. And top level, she's a 4/4, so it's decent for a 3-cost, which became a 2-cost with Luke Cage.
Once
you bought him for 5.
I didn't even know that one.
It's quite expensive.
Didn't even know she existed. I think I've only looked at the other 2.
Yeah, the other 2. There's one that stopped your opponent from buying a character, which was kind of the splashy one. Actually, I quite like this one. You just leave it out; it annoys your opponents enough. Whereas that one sort of didn't really work because by the time you got it out and cycled, your opponent would just buy the piece that they needed.
Oh yeah.
It was good though because was it something to do with it? Like you couldn't remove it. Like they just couldn't.
If it just applied, I think. Yeah.
If Exactly. You ban them from purchasing whatever they wanted to purchase, and then you could remove her from the field. And then there's literally nothing they could do about it. It's a little bit niche, but it worked against when I was playing Ultraman and somebody played it and stopped me buying bloody kryptonites. Bloody hell.
I think there was a brief period which was interesting where it was paired up with the Collector, which was sort of interesting as well because you could kind of do that.
What you mean, the Collector that allows you just
characters.
to switch stuff in from your...
Because you could get the Collector set up and then just field a Hellcat to stop them buying whatever they needed.
Yeah.
And that's a bit more flexible. And people see it coming less, I suppose.
And it's interesting, actually, that Hellcat is, when fielded, name a die, replacing all previous choices, because it's not even a character. Often those targeting type things are characters, aren't they? And action dice are usually not included in that. But yeah, it's interesting that one is name a die.
And then I suppose then my other piece I was really happy with on the team, which was kind of a surprise hit for me, was the Felicity Smoke 3-cost Green Arrow, manipulating technology. So she reads, while Felicity Smoke is active, you may re-roll one extra time during your roll and re-roll step. And I found her particularly useful because I generally roll pretty terribly. But she was
says the world champion
stuff. I know. It's a dice game. That's why I like stuff like Mimic and PXG, which give me loads of dice to roll. Because then your variance is much less. But no, her ability was actually really good, and I like the fact that she's free on every face. So 011, 012, and 013, which is very nice.
Yeah.
I found her very useful. And shields actually came up several times as being good energy source for me to have. So it was a pretty terrible team, but I liked a couple of the pieces on it.
James would love to use that Felicity Smoke just so he can roll a character to energy face one additional time in a turn. James,
I like to do that as many times as possible.
Well, there was a couple of things. So I had the Katana, which if you roll question marks, you can field Katana for free. So Felicity Smoke kind of gave me that extra like little bit of control over re-rolling some stuff, even if I was sort of okay with it, but risking that little bit of extra on the roll. But yeah, should I talk about my other? So I had another win condition as well.
What was that?
Which is very convoluted. Well, it's not very convoluted. But my
Did
second
it involve your 7-cost Doctor Strange?
It did. So 7-cost Doctor Strange came out, and he lets you repeat actions. So my second basic action on the team was Anger Issues, which gives +3 attack and Overcrush.
Right.
I also, and it has a Pump Global as well, which is important. I also then had Diggle. Diggle, another green arrow. He's a 5-cost. And while Diggle is active, you may spend shields as question marks. Okay? This is important.
Right.
So, I then had Jessica Jones, Ladies' Night, which she gets +1 attack, +1 defense whenever one of your character die is targeted by a global. So, you could use the Diggle's ability to make shields and fists and question marks pump for Anger Issues.
Right.
So that's, a 50% chance of rolling those on sidekicks.
Yeah.
Then you could use Anger Issues, and if you had Doctor Strange out, that was a +6 attack for Jessica Jones.
Right.
So you could pump Jessica Jones. She had Overcrush. She'd also get this +6 attack. And then she'd be really beefy.
That's pretty good. And all you need is a 7-cost, a 5-cost, and a 4-cost.
And a 5-cost, because Jessica Jones is also a 5-cost.
Wow.
So 2 5-costs, a 7-cost, and a 4-cost.
And presumably you pulled that off pretty consistently throughout most of your matches.
I managed to do it once, I think.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty
But that was generally when I generally did okay when my opponent had ramp.
That you could use.
That I could just steal, yeah.
yeah. It's because buying a 7-cost is not exactly easy without it.
No, but Luke Cage, actually, the main problem was getting to Luke Cage. Once I got to Luke Cage, I actually had quite a big flow of dice.
Right.
Because I could get Hellcats out, and they have enough stats that my opponent probably blocks. And in a limited format, you're kind of restricted by what you can do.
Yeah.
So I could get them churning fairly regularly.
Yeah. So how did you end the day? How many games did you play? How many did you win? And what happened?
Played 5 games, won 2, lost 3.
Okay.
I think I was
a terrible team. That's pretty respectable.
I mean, Peter battered me. To be fair, Peter was playing a Deadpool and Spider-Man team, and actually there was quite a few Spider friends.
Oh yes,
which is a very good affiliation.
That was tier 2 as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, again tier 2.
That was again another one I think that we punted in the last podcast, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Madam Web is very oppressive in this format because it kind of gives you a guaranteed win. You just have to get to it and get enough stats out, so it takes a bit of time.
She's the one that you can pay to make everything block her.
Yeah, so I was feeling exactly. So I was feeling pretty good against Peter, but as soon as he bought that Madam Web, I was like, well, it's just a matter of time until he just gets it, and then he wins.
Yeah,
is she from Guardians? She from Guardians?
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah,
is that the last time Spider Friends has been seen? It's a quiz question.
Let's have a look at the.
No way. There must have been one in.
I feel like we haven't seen it for a long time.
No, in Thor there was Thor.
Was there?
Yeah, there were Spider Friends in Thor.
Was that Spider?
Yeah, Daredevil. That's
Daredevil.
Spider thing. Yeah.
Was that the most
and then
recent?
there was the Slingers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Haha.
I don't have that. That doesn't. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I think there's been a couple of promos actually with Spider affiliation. Wasn't there that other? There was a Spider-Man promo which was PT, I think.
Oh, Sneaky Pete or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then there's also the Gwen Stacy and a Mary Jane promos from. Well, they're listed as M 2016, so. I don't know if they were actually 2016.
I think they were a long time ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
But yeah, there have been some sort of...
Yeah, so Peter battered me, but I got pretty close in the rest of them, even if I didn't win. I mean, it was largely down to betrayal, I'm not going to lie. Just like bad control from me, and just, waiting for betrayal. And then just try to kill them as quickly as possible.
I don't think we've mentioned what betrayal does.
So betrayal... Basically, it does a load of damage to your opponent if they have lots of characters out. But the exact text... I have it with me.
It's a basic action card.
It is.
4 cost.
Deal 1 damage to target opponent for each character die in their field zone. And on a double burst phase, if Betrayal did at least 2 damage, put this die in your prep area.
Ah, yes.
So again, with Felicity Smoke, I could take that extra chance on the trying to get the double burst.
If you're feeling lucky, Punk.
Oh my god, would you re-roll?
So if I got it on its action phase, the first roll, I would then re-roll it.
I would never do that.
Why? Because then you still have the same chance as if you just drawn it, right? So you still have 2 rolls of it.
2 rolls, yeah.
And it's worth it to get into your prep area, especially if you have like 30 dice going around your bag.
I can see the logic, but no. It just feels wrong.
You have to be risky in your dice rolls.
Yeah, I suppose if you got a big fat bag, yeah, fair enough.
Did people buy your betrayals very often then with your Hellcat, or was that quite effective?
No, I think most, especially I think in online play, people are more focused on what they play.
Yeah,
I think a couple of people did. Trying to remember off the top of my head if anyone. No one won with that. No one changed their strategy to buy betrayals and then won that way. Everyone won based on what they were doing.
I think that is a good point, though, what you just made about online, the difference between online play and in-person play, because I think it is easier to be slightly less aware of what your opponent is doing and what they've got on their side of the mat when you're playing online, because you can't really see it properly. Mm-hmm. And obviously you can look at the team builder, but it's another thing you have to think about doing. I think it's quite easy to forget to do that. Whereas obviously if you can see all the cards they've got in front of them on the other side of a table, it's kind of easier to work out what's going on. So I wonder if it would have played out differently if you'd have played it in person.
But again, I had the Hellcat as well, which made it a 5 cost.
Yeah.
Which does take it out of their kind of purchasing curve as such.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, so what was the rest of the games? Who did you have?
So I played Shadow Meld in the last round, which he had Defenders. He had Teen Titans and Legion of Doom, but mainly focused around the Teen Titan Hawk Dove combo, which basically when Dove gets cleared, Hawk does his attack to your opponent. And he had various means of getting Hawk to level 3.
Yeah. And
ensuring that Dove could get KO'd with some global shenanigans. That was a pretty fun game because there was he brought lots of globals, and obviously I love playing with globals. So it made it quite interesting.
Yeah.
Back and forth. But yeah, he I think I was maybe a turn away with Betrayals. But yeah, I mean, I think he got fairly unlucky not to have killed me sooner.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think then I played Skyraver, who also had Spider Friends.
Yeah.
And I thought what actually was pretty cool in his team is he had Iron Family, what are they called? Iron Man's friends? Iron Man's pals.
Really? Yeah.
Iron Pals. Whatever that affiliation is. But he had the Iron Spider, too cool for words, which actually is a Iron Friends and Spider Friends affiliation, so he had both of them.
Oh, yeah.
On that one, which let him sneak in an extra Spider Friends character.
Yeah, interesting.
So he had the Man and Web and the Spider-Man that gives all your Spider Friends +2 attack. Luckily for me, he had Superhero Registration Act, so I could make the Hellcat make his Superhero Registration Act one more.
Oh, really expensive, yeah.
But cheaper for me. And that worked with churning my Hellcats around as well for Luke Cage.
So did he play the Iron Spider, the 4-cost Iron Spider, too cool for words, when fielded, deal 2 damage to target character die for each different active Iron Man or Spider Friends character die you control?
Yeah, exactly that one.
Well, that's actually good in that team, isn't it?
Yeah, sneaky, isn't it? Yeah. It's sneaky because it gives you an extra Spider Friends character, which is, very nice. But I think I managed to get 2 of the Superhero Registration Acts, and he only got 1. Which I think he was okay with, but just made my team a lot faster so I could get Doctor Strange out, and once I got Doctor Strange out, that Superhero Registration Act was churning like 6 die through.
Oh, flip, yeah. Because it counted twice.
That went pretty well for me. I also played... I'm going to have to look it up now. I played J. Lucero? No, General Nemesis.
Oh, Dana.
Dana beat me pretty easily, I'm pretty sure.
Of course he did.
He also played Spider Friends and the Shield characters, which we mentioned Matthew Brewer played.
Right, okay.
He actually was playing Spider-Man War of Heart.
Right.
Which is another Spider Friend which kind of manipulates blockers. And I think he just smashed me with dum-dums very quickly. I couldn't do much about.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the person I mentioned is Lobo Tranky, who was playing Avengers. But they were very limited. I think he had a starter set. He had starter sets basically. So he was very limited in the Avengers he could play, and he also played Defenders. But yeah, it was a fun little game. He was buying lots of characters, and not being necessarily as targeted as he could be in his purchase order, I think. So I managed to win that one with Betrayals, I think, just cheap spamming of those. So yeah, 2 and 3, 2 wins, 3 losses, which was okay for such a terrible team. But mainly thanks to stuff I could buy and use off my opponent and Betrayal.
Yeah. Well, that little kind of... Well, that almost serves as a bit of an intro, doesn't it, in terms of just to the notion of playing with bad cards. It sort of got us thinking about that idea a little bit, about the benefits of playing with bad cards, because often it's very easy for us, isn't it, just to kind of slip into playing with our old favourites, the really strong stuff, the really efficient, effective cards that do everything, the kind of Becky Lynches that have about 6 different things going on just on one card. But actually, there are some benefits to you as a Dice Masters player from playing with cards that maybe are significantly weaker. And we just thought it'd be good to chat through some of those ideas now. So, Ben, what kind of things, why is it good to play with bad stuff?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason in general is that you get to see a wider range of abilities, even if they're not optimized. I always say the thing that makes me good at Dice Masters is I played a lot more Dice Masters with a lot more different cards than most people.
Mm-hmm.
I would happily play quote-unquote rubbish teams because I was interested in kind of like seeing what they could do, or what certain cards could do, and maybe play a less optimized team just to try out this one piece, or stuff like Heroic. Always springs to mind in this. I tried to make Heroic work, which is an ability in UXM, which kind of, when you fielded 2 Heroic characters, you could pair them up. And it was pretty terrible.
Yes.
So I played with that so much just to try and see if I could make it work. And you push those boundaries to see what you can do and how you can optimize builds, which makes you then, when you have actually good cards, it makes it like, oh yeah, I can do this really easily now. I know how this works. I know how to optimize bad cards, so now I know how to optimize really good cards.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because usually it's easy to kind of ignore some of those lesser known things and just kind of think, oh, there's no value in playing those because they're just terrible.
Well, stuff like the Diggle, which I played in the Roll for the North.
What are you sniggering about, James?
This is the name Diggle. Carry on.
In the 5 cost, it's not worth the 5 cost purchase, but actually giving you the ability to spend the shield as a question mark was really useful in certain instances. So you can look at that and be like, well, why is that card good once it gets out? And why is it bad? Well, you can see that it's bad because it costs so much for your return on investment, but actually, because it decreases the random element, a bit like the Felicity Smoke, I suppose. Yeah. Because it decreases the variance, you can be more consistent with what you're trying to get, the energy you're trying to get, and what you're trying to buy. So yeah, I think that's what really works. So you can see little things like that and then pick up on things like that and then see when a new card comes out or a new set, you can look at that and be like, oh, this is what works well.
Yeah. James, did you want to chip in at all with anything on that?
Well, I would wholeheartedly agree with what Ben said, but I must say that I tend not to play cards like that because I'm incredibly shallow. I like to play power cards. But listening to Ben, there is a reason why he is as good as he is, and that's one of them. Playing those cards clearly is beneficial. It's just I turn my nose up at them and I don't play them.
Well, I suppose that's why formats like doing like the dice fight, right, and doing weird formats like
being forced to play them. You're
forced to play less optimized things, right? And that happens a great deal in draft. You kind of get stuck with, why am I have to play this 2-cost card, not because it's good, just because it's a 2-cost and I need a 2-cost to my team. Yeah. Actually, you play with it and then you're like, oh, why is this good? Why is this not good?
Yeah. I like limited formats. That's one of the reasons why they, obviously they push you into areas that you wouldn't normally touch, and then even if you're shallow like me, you still end up playing the sort of stuff that Ben's mentioned, and you learn those kind of things. Definitely a good thing. You should either push yourself or put yourself in situations where you are pushed.
Yeah. And there's a bit of stuff about efficiency, isn't there, Ben, as well, just in terms of bag control and that kind of stuff that you can learn.
Well, yeah, again, to link it back to the Roll for the North thing, my team was terrible, mainly, not because, the Betrayal win condition and doubling that up actually is a pretty effective win condition and something that people could play in a tournament. My problem was to get that churning. I didn't have the cards in my team to get that round enough, efficiently enough. Yeah. So one of the things you have to learn is how to get to that 5-cost character if you are limited in what you can do. How do you get the loot cage out if your opponent doesn't bring anything? How can you, with just using Hellcat in a strategic way, maybe not trying to roll it for energy on turn 3, and foregoing fielding a character on turn 3 to buy the 5-cost.
Yeah.
Is better. And then also playing with stuff like Villainous Pact is really good. So Villainous Pact Global, which preps the die every turn, but in a very limited way, is much better for you to learn how to bag control than just relying on Resurrection and putting that out all the time, because that just kind of is an incessant ability which always works and will always let you prep a die. But Villainous Pact is limited. Iron Lad, stuff like that is limited. So a good way to practice always that efficiency of you have 5 dice in your use pile, you're going to prep one to ensure you roll everything next turn, and then next turn you're going to have 5 dice, and then you prep one, so you're going to have 4 dice pulled and the 1 dice in your prep area. Is much harder with Iron Lad and Villainous Pact. So one of the ways to improve is to play with those cards rather than rely on Resurrection. Throw in an Iron Lad instead and see if you can work the same way you would with Resurrection.
What do you mean about Villainous Pact? Because the only restriction is that you can't have something in your prep area already. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So if you already... Okay. So stuff like you can't play it with Heimdall Global, for example.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right, because you can't prep and then... You can't rely on a Counter-Strike Global, I suppose is a new one. You can't rely on having 6 die in your energy, in your use pile, and then counter-striking 1 and then prepping the rest with Villainous Pact.
Yeah.
You can't rely on maybe having a Psychic in your field that you block with or KO somehow.
Yeah.
With Villainous Pact. You can't... Yeah, so there's lots of shenanigans. If you try and do those restricted globals, it improves you a lot more. Than just playing with the kind of global works. So then when you're playing with the global you do know works, you know exactly how to do it in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah, that's good.
And I haven't used. Sorry, Spoke.
Go ahead.
I haven't used Resurrection for donkey's years. It's all been Atlas and Villainous Pact because it's out of.
It's not in modern,
yeah. That's what it is.
That would be why. You will have to play some Golden James, and you might get a chance at Dice Fight when I think isn't there? We'll talk about this later on, but isn't there a perfect opportunity?
But one of the things I suppose is that's really crucial is the learning to play with just 8 sidekicks, right? And learning when to get sidekicks into your field, and when to block with them, and when to let your opponent's sidekicks through, for example. And all that kind of stuff comes with playing. And you can do that with just blank card if you just have some blank cards on your team. I suppose the classic example is the Ghost Rider. Just a blank card with no effect, but just some really good numbers, right? Which is from the original AVX set, which everyone played with because of the 2-cost bolt with a 5/5 attack stat line. And then everyone realized actually blank cards can be good, but not for a 3-cost fielding.
Indeed.
For the stats.
Yeah.
So looking at stats and knowing how they're useful.
Yeah, because I guess we've talked about stats in the sense of Peter's. Did we give it a name? I can't remember. Did we give Peter's new
the Van
der Velde scale or whatever it was? We talked about that a bit on previous shows, just in terms of trying to come up with some kind of formula that sets out the strength of a card with its purchase versus fielding and attack and defense. But yeah, that is an important thing that maybe you don't always consider quite so much in the top tier cards, because maybe those decisions have already kind of been taken because these cards have been shown to be good. So it's all pretty straightforward to choose those kind of things. But actually learning to assess stuff on its particular merits by yourself, I think, is an important skill to have, particularly when it comes to draft and you're maybe dealing with cards that you're not quite so familiar with.
If you compare like the Blob rare and the Drax rare, which do basically the same thing, compare what you like better out of the two of them. Drax, on the surface, they do the same thing, and Drax is 1 cost less to buy. But actually, the stat differences are quite drastic. Blob has lower fielding and much bigger defense, but much worse attack.
Yeah.
So what in your playstyle does that fit better? Are you more a defensive player with that kind of card, or do you want the option of limiting your opponent and then being able to attack with a 4/6 Drax?
Yeah. There was one other point I think you were going to make, just in terms of...
Yeah, I suppose just the last one would be knowing when to attack and defend. It forces your...
Oh, yes.
If you don't have a clear win condition, your only way to win is by attacking with stuff. So you have to know when you can punch through. And part of the problem with that Jessica Jones win condition was that by the time I could get all those pieces out, my opponent had a big field and that overcrush was much less effective.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you could pump her like a lot. So how do you work your way around a big wall if you don't have a way like Madam Web to get around the wall? Knowing when to optimize attacking with a couple of characters versus attacking with everyone is very interesting, and knowing when to let your opponent attack with people. And you can do all this stuff with just blank cards. Get your opponent to play some blank cards, you bring some blank cards, and then you can really focus on that kind of attack defense kind of role. Yeah,
kind of taking it back almost to the days of maybe your first game of Dice Masters when you might have played with some simple cards or a half team or something like that. It's stripping it back to the basic mechanics, I think, is can be helpful. Good. Well, hopefully that will give you a bit of a sense of why it might be good to play with some bad stuff. James, are you going to be leaping out now and throwing together a team of Ghost Riders and Vixens and all other
undoubtedly
stuff? Yeah.
And by bad cards, I don't necessarily mean those. I just mean don't just do Godcatcher. Try the Great Drunkard. You never know; it might be alright.
Yeah. It is decent though.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it is. James is pulling a face. You obviously can't see this on the podcast.
It's a good card. It's actually pretty. Yeah, it's just not Godcatcher.
It's not Godcatcher. No. Good. Well, did you play in Roll for the North? Did you take part? Is there anything interesting that came out from that? If so, let us know. Did you see any great plays or any other good combos that maybe we've missed that might be worth mentioning? And do get in touch with us using the contact details at the end of the show. Otherwise, we will move on to our next segment. Okay, well, a couple of episodes back now, we kind of concluded our little quartet of discussions about the different energy types. And we have previously looked at the Fistiest Fist, the Maskiest Mask, the Shieldiest Shield. And now we were going to be looking at the Boltiest Bolt. And each one of us put forward a suggestion for Boltiest Bolt, and we wanted to throw it open to the Dice Masters communities. They can vote for which card they felt was the Boltiest Bolt of them all, and we can reveal that following the poll on the DM Unlimited Facebook page, the winner has been crowned as, drumroll please, thank you, Nova, the Human Rocket. He has been declared as the Boltiest Bolt.
Boo. I never win these things.
You never win these things?
No, these ones, no one likes my picks ever.
No. That's true, actually. This was Peter's pick, wasn't it, Nova?
Indeed it was. Yeah. Somehow Magic Missile slipped into third place without even being a bolt.
Yeah, well, it's very bolty. That's why. Yeah, that is why. But yeah, Nova the Human Rocket from the original AVX set, he has been declared the Boltiest Bolt. Whenever he's a 5-cost bolt, and whenever Nova takes damage in an attack step, he deals 2 damage to your opponent. He's kind of the precursor to the slightly cheaper Iceman that came later on. But he was a really good card, maybe slightly overshadowed at the time in terms of ultra competitive stuff by some of the Black Widows and Nobbies and stuff, but obviously a great card, and now enshrined in our kind of Hall of Fame as the Boltiest Bolt. So he joins Guy Gardner as the Fistiest Fist, Professor X as the Maskiest Mask, and what came out as the Shieldiest Shield?
Alfred.
Of course it did, yeah. Of course it did, James. How can I forget? And Nova is in there as the Boltiest Bolt. Another AVX card, Human Torch, Johnny Storm, came in second place.
Yeah, I do feel like Nova's a bit of a... Well, I suppose Alfred was the biggest drop in quality. in terms of
Screw you!
Historic Dice Masters cards.
He is historic.
The Pantheon.
He deserves his place.
Guy Gardner's at the pinnacle as one of the biggest pain in the butts. Professor X, the best global of all time.
Yeah.
Professor X just not the maskiest mask, though, so,
Massive drop down in legendary status to Alfred.
Whatever.
And then pick up a little bit for Nova, but not much.
I feel like maybe there should have been a bit of a steward's inquiry, really. The Electoral Commission should have got involved in the Alfred vote and seeing if there wasn't kind of social media, nefarious social media exactly, activity going on, fake Facebook accounts from Russia voting and all other kind of stuff.
From Central European. Dodginess.
No, so it's good to see Nova being crowned as the Boltiest Bolt. And we should give a little mention to Cosmic Cube Energy of the Beyonders, one of the few banned cards in Dice Masters, which
it's
friend
not
of the show.
banned, though. It's not banned anymore. It was banned from Modern.
Sorry. Excuse me. Okay, I'll take it back. One of the few cards that have been banned in Dice Masters. And Nick Wiley put it forward, and that gathered 1 vote. So hello, Nick. Well done for putting that forward. But
I voted for that one. That's a good one. That would have been legendary status, I think. And the fact that Yanti's not even on this list is just ridiculous. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, we could only have 1 pick each.
We should mention Jason because he was lobbying quite hard for Techno downloaded consciousness.
Oh, indeed, yes.
Yeah, that global's good. That global's very bolty.
He's also a thunderbolt.
He's a thunderbolt, yeah.
But he doesn't have lightning bolts coming out of his mouth, does he? Come on.
So he has a tune and he also has a global that says pay a bolt, spin any number of your sidekick dice in your field zone and reserve pool to their bolt side.
That is pretty bolty.
That is pretty bolty, yeah. It's hard to disagree with that. But the people have spoken and they have crowned Nova as the winner. All right, so that is the end of that little discussion. We just got a little bit of AOB to round up before we finish the episode. Okay, so I think the main thing is probably just Dice Fight on the Any Other Business front. I think we're looking at 18th and 25th of November for those particular events. James, what's going on those?
First of all, another thank you to Rick and Danny who've been sort of managing it in my not exactly absence, but they've been doing a sterling job. So thank you both again. And I think that the 18th, if I remember correctly, is the single affiliation D&D Monsters, which was put off because people wanted to practice for the 2 online events, which have now taken place as this airs, I suppose. So I think finally, if I'm not mistaken, that's what's next. And the 25th, I don't know yet. So watch this space.
TBC. Very good. So that's, Thursday nights, 9 p.m. UK time, 10 p.m. Central European time, and other times are available if you are in other parts of the world. You can just work that out for yourself. I'm sure you can. But all you need is a webcam and access to the Discord server. So get involved with that friendly community if you want some weekly online dice action. Otherwise, it's been really good to have you with us. It's been a bit of more of a mini-sode, hasn't it? This week we are 25% lighter in the voice front, and we're kind of probably about 25% shorter. So that's probably
we need more drama and more Peter.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wanted to have a root canal discussion, but you wouldn't do that.
Maybe another time we'll talk root canals, but I think it might be a bit too sensitive in more ways than one for Peter at the moment.
Got any Dice Masters characters you'd like to have a root canal with? Or let me know.
Answers on a postcard, please. Yes. To hello@dmunited.eu.
Yes, thank you. That's a nice segue into the contact us details. So thank you. Well, it's been really good to have you with us for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, it'd be great if you could like, rate, review, do all that nice stuff using your favourite podcast app, and don't forget to subscribe so you can be the first to hear when a new episode drops. Otherwise, we will be back in 2 weeks' time. Thanks a lot and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.